Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Hello, hello, hello. It's Wendy welcoming you to episode 25 of See You on the Other Side. Man, these episodes are flying by. I can't believe we're already 25 in. I'm just stopping in real quick here today to say hello and thank you for listening. And as you know, we are big fans of fiction and science fiction fantasy here at See You on the Other Side. And today Mike's talking to an author who actually talks to superheroes. Not the fictional kind, not the ones in books, but the actual people on the streets who don the cape and the mask, get out there and risk themselves and their lives to look out for the better good of the community. So, without further ado, take it away, Mike.
All right. We're here with Milwaukee freelance writer T. Krulos. And he's got a variety of interesting projects going on. But the one that we thought we'd start out with today is his journey into the real-life superhero movement, and that's with his book, Heroes in the Night. Hi, T. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's always good to see Wisconsin weirdness, and we'll always raise the banner for that as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
But what got you into this kind of stuff in the first place? I know you've got a soft spot for weird stuff in your heart, and we're just always interested in what ignited that fire in you that got you interested in and got that bug going for you.
Well, I mean, this is a lot of stuff that I liked as a kid. I like reading books about UFOs and Bigfoot. I like superhero comic books. I've always liked weird kind of stories. When I became a teenager, I was kind of into punk rock and just really liked anything that was out of the ordinary or strange. So,
are you from Wisconsin originally?
Yeah, I was born in Milwaukee and raised mostly in the suburb of Port Washington. I also lived in West Bend briefly before I moved back to Milwaukee when I turned 18.
Okay, no, great. Our the drummer in our band, Wendy, who's often on this podcast with me, is from Mequon. So,
oh yeah, okay.
Plenty familiar with the Port Washington area.
Yeah.
So you got into this stuff, and what was the first time you heard or saw of one of the real life superheroes, and when did that kind of click?
Yeah, well, that was in 2009. I freelance in Milwaukee. I do a lot of freelancing, so I've written articles for a lot of the local newspapers and magazines. So I'm always kind of keeping my eyes and ears open for an interesting story. In 2009, there's a syndicated column called News of the Weird, which I love to read, while I'm waiting for my bus or drinking coffee. And there was a very short blurb that just said something that there was this group of people that call themselves real-life superheroes and that they actually adopted their own personas and, went out and did stuff on the street. And I thought, wow, that sounds really crazy and dangerous.
Yes.
But I kept thinking about that, for the rest of the day. I was like, wait a minute, what? I'd never heard of this. What's this all about? So my curiosity got the better of me, and I sat down with Google and looked up Milwaukee real-life superheroes, hoping that I could find someone that I could meet up with and maybe write a short article about. I did find a guy named The Watchman who had a MySpace page.
Okay.
And which was funny in itself. So I contacted him and said, I'm really interested in this, I want to meet up with you and hear what you're all about.
Well, what was his MySpace page like? Was it that pic? I mean, you have pictures of the Watchmen on your site. And so for anybody listening, the Watchman patrols River West.
Yeah.
which is kind of a gentrifying area of Milwaukee, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's turning into a real, or kind of is a hip kind of place. You'll see a lot of mustaches. There's a lot of PBR being drank in that area.
Right.
And so, and let's just describe the Watchman really quick, because his picture is brilliant.
Yeah, the Watchman patrols. He wears a red rubber cowl. He has red leather gloves, and then he usually has like a trench coat, and underneath a spandex shirt with a W symbol on it. He kind of switches it up sometimes, but yeah, and he wears combat boots, and
but he's got that red mask over the top of his head.
Yeah.
Which you just see this like goatee, like white guy goatee underneath, and it's perfect. Like I'm thinking, if back when I had a goatee, if I was, that would look like me with a red mask on, was the superhero. And it's just, did his MySpace page have people like were people commenting on it, whatever, like "Save me, Watchman," or "What's going on, redhead?" What kind of things were on there?
Well, mostly his MySpace friends were other real-life superheroes.
Okay.
So it's kind of if you look at, and now most of them have switched from MySpace to Facebook. You can find them on Facebook. And the funny thing is, it's a conversation like you would normally see on Facebook, except all the little avatars are people wearing costumes, So it's kind of surreal, It's like a comic book social network mashup.
Sure, it's like when people put images up, or they put up stuff where it's like fake Facebook conversations between Batman and Superman, kind of thing, or like when they have those, the text message between Thor and Captain America or whatnot, So no, that's great. And so you sent him a message like, "Hey, did you? How did you approach a real life superhero, knowing that you're riding the line and you don't want to make fun of the person? You want to actually take them seriously."
Yeah. Well, it's an approach that I've kind of refined over the years. You want to go in and talk to someone and be honest, but be respectful. And so I said, I'm really interested in what you do, and I was. And you mentioned River West where he patrols, and I live in that neighborhood too.
Okay.
And I like the neighborhood. But it's gritty, crime happens there, and I've been fortunate enough that it hasn't happened to me. But I've had friends who have been mugged, or had their cars broken into. All sorts of things.
we used to play at the Mad Planet.
Yeah.
And so,
and I heard about someone getting shot outside of Mad Planet not too long ago.
Oh, and there were stories of people, like bands carrying out their equipment, which was worth, several $1,000s. And the muggers were like, "Give me the cash you made from the show." And obviously the muggers don't realize the musicians make like $50 from the show. So
right.
they could have grabbed the amp or the guitar and sold it for $1,000, but instead got like $100 from the band.
Yeah. So anyway, when I heard about this, I was like, well, this is kind of a strange idea. But I was like, but maybe, who knows? Maybe it's an idea that'll work. And so I was curious about that, would having someone dress up like a superhero patrolling the streets of River West make a difference? So I told him I was interested in talking about all that, and we set up a meeting in River West, actually, at Gordon Park one night.
Okay.
And it was this kind of brilliant moment where I was freezing, walking around this park, and then he pulled up in his car and got out and started walking towards me in his Watchman outfit. And it didn't really hit me until then, where I was like, wow, this is really happening.
Right. What kind of, it wasn't like a special kind of souped up mobile or anything. Like what kind of car was it?
Just a regular Pontiac,
Okay. Because I know when we talk about the Great Lakes Alliance, and you talk about some of the missions you went on with those, and we'll get there. It's like when you're reading the book, it's like, and so then we all jumped in the minivan, And it's not like the X plane or something like that. It just makes it feel like, yeah, and so we got in the grocery getter and then went to the villain's lair.
Right. Yeah, these guys, they don't have anything mind-boggling. It's just, normal, homemade type of feel to what they do.
Right, and so you meet up with the Watchman, and like how what was the patrol like? Was he just like, just, hey, we're just gonna walk the streets, we're gonna check everything out?
Well, the first meeting, we just wanted to meet up in person so we could talk, and I don't think either of us really knew what to make of each other.
Sure.
Like I didn't. These guys are suspicious of writers, and they should be, because a lot of writers just want to rip them. And I didn't know. I was like, maybe this guy is totally crazy. But I met up with him, and we talked for a long time that night, and I really liked him. I was like, he's certainly quirky, doing something unusual, but a lot of the stuff he was saying I felt was really heartfelt, and I kind of understood where he was coming from. So, after I talked to him and kind of checked out some of the other real-life superheroes, that's when I decided that I would want to write a book, and that I thought that there was enough material to write a book. So, after that, I started hanging out with the Watchman quite a bit. I went on quite a few patrols with him. He did some charity events that I participated in too. But, and that was kind of the funny thing was we did a lot of patrols in River West. I did at least a dozen patrols with them while I was working on the book, and we didn't really run into anything.
Well, that's good. That's good, at least, and maybe the job is getting done.
Yeah, right.
So, did you report? Like, was there anything to report? I know that one of his things was the Watchman is more about reporting. Like, if he sees, he's not going to just try to beat somebody up, like in the movie Kick-Ass or something. He's more about the neighborhood watch kind of thing. The Watchman, right?
Yeah, that's really how I describe what they do. I'm like, it's like a neighborhood block watch, except the guys like comic books and they wear superhero outfits. So, he and his team, eventually, when I first talked to him, he was kind of the only real-life superhero, but then one of the cool things was he developed this Milwaukee team called the Challengers, and they had a more mellow approach to it, I think, as far as being more of like looking for crime to report, doing charity events, handing out supplies to homeless people. They weren't like, they were unlike, I met another real-life superhero in Seattle named Phoenix Jones, and he was very kind of aggressive about running in and trying to, mediate crime that he saw.
Well, I saw Phoenix Jones. Okay, so we should describe Phoenix Jones, because his suit is pretty tough looking. Like, it's got a good look. He's got a good looking outfit. Yeah,
he does. His original costume was kind of low rent, but he invested a lot and got this kind of form-fitting rubber suit that covers his whole body. And part of his thing is he wears a bulletproof vest and everything.
Right, and he's not afraid to mix it up. Like, there's something on the Real Life Superhero blog where after the Super Bowl last year, Phoenix Jones got he got some fire damage on the thing.
Oh yes. He there was rioting in the streets and people had started a bonfire in the street, and he tried to extinguish the fire, and some of the people partying or rioting or whatever threw something that was on fire at him and burnt part of his suit. So, yeah, it's a crime intervention or, do-it-yourself crowd control. It can be a dangerous thing. For sure.
Absolutely can be a dangerous thing. And in your experience, what has been the law enforcement attitude towards real-life superheroes?
I think reaction has been mixed, and it depends a lot on what the real-life superhero or real-life superhero team is doing. A lot of cops kind of have the attitude of, we appreciate that you're trying to help us out, but we don't want you to cause more of a problem, or get yourself hurt. So a lot of police officers, I think, are kind of cautious and say, leave the crime fighting to us.
So
some are a little friendlier, and we'll pose for pictures and stuff with them, and some are a little more aggressive, like, you should go home now.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering. In what cities do you think they're more amenable to real-life superheroes than others? Like, if you were, let's say, you were somebody like, you know what, I kind of want to get involved in this. Where would you be like, well, this place would be a great place, and this place wouldn't?
Milwaukee, the reaction has been really good. Seattle, there's a lot of police who don't like Phoenix Jones. Other cities, it's really kind of mixed.
And I know that you spend a lot of time when you were working on Heroes in the Night. You spent a lot of time in Minneapolis. And
I went up there, I think, 3 times while I was working on the book.
And I think that it really gets interesting. And I, as I'm reading it, the book and everything, I'm in downtown Minneapolis, so I'm enjoying all of these, places that you're talking about, walking by and the bridges and stuff like that, because I'm looking at them outside the window. And when we talk about, superheroes communicating with each other, and this is something that's in pop culture a lot lately, because they're working on the Batman versus Superman movie and the Justice League. And obviously Avengers 2 is coming out in May. So superhero team-ups. And in Minneapolis is where you came for the team-up of the Great Lakes Alliance.
Right, yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's great because in the comic books, the Justice League can all kind of beam themselves into the same,
right,
Justice meeting place or something. But the Watchmen started this kind of Midwest team along with Razorhawk, who's from Minneapolis, and Geist, who's from Rochester. And, in order to meet up, those guys kind of a commute, because Milwaukee is a good 6 hours away from Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah.
And Rochester's, I don't know, maybe like an hour and a half or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's an effort, but it's like any sort of group of people who are very passionate about something. They enjoy meeting up with each other and walking around patrolling all night and talking about their various techniques and stuff like that.
Well, what did you, when you actually saw them together, and you go into detail in the book where you talk about the Celtic Viking, and the Celtic Viking versus Razorhawk versus the Watchmen and everything. When you see them all together, and we always have that, like, well, Batman and Superman have like a little bit of a tiff, they have a rivalry, and superheroes always have the way they interact and the drama between them. Could you sense any kind of drama in the organization between people that may be more serious versus people that may be more jovial versus people that may be more, like, let's go get the bad guys versus let's call the police?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's kind of legendary within the real-life superhero community. I should clarify, not the people like the Great Lakes Alliance. They get along well with each other. But, yeah, there are individuals and groups that just absolutely despise each other. Terribly. And it's for a lot of reasons. Difference in methods and arguments over that. There's some that say, superheroes should only do things like charity events, and others say only crime fighting. But a lot of the argument is just simply over ego, I think. There's a certain sort of weird ego that goes into something like this. And
yeah, definitely.
there's kind of a people get a little angry or jealous with each other if, like, let's say one individual gets more media attention or is more popular or something like that. There's a little bit of that social drama involved in this. But yeah, there's been some pretty famous rivalries between individuals and teams, and it's kind of funny, but it's kind of sad at the same time. You're like, even these superheroes can't stand each other.
Right. Well, I mean, these guys and girls are absolutely brave because you are completely putting yourself out there. And I mean, I guess as a writer, I know that as an entertainer and a musician, that you create something, and then you give it to the public for either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's that it goes out there and either people like it or they don't like it. But with writing or with music, you can always write another song or be like, okay, this book didn't work out. We're gonna move on to this one. With these characters, these guys they're giving personalities. They're giving themselves not just work. Like it is their person that is presented. So I think they're really laying a lot on the line.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, and so I'm surprised that not just that they get along at all. It seems like there's a lot invested in there. When I was reading about one of the adventures you went on with these guys, when you went out with Razorhawk and the Celtic Viking and everything, was when you went in search of the smiley face killers.
Oh yeah.
And for people who might not be familiar with the smiley face killers, along the Mississippi River for the past couple of decades, there's been a rash of young guys, like 19 to 25, all healthy, fairly athletic, blonde hair usually, are getting, they're getting found dead in the river after a night out, where they end up wandering out alone and in doing things that are completely outside of their, that people think are completely outside of their behavior. Like one time in St. Paul, a guy went out after, it was at his birthday party. He leaves his own birthday party and they find him in the river a few weeks later. Am I capturing that right, you think?
Yeah. It's mysterious. It's kind of this theory that they came up with that it might be like a gang of serial killers doing this. But I don't know. It's been kind of a controversial theory because some people say it's legit and other people say it's more of a conspiracy idea.
Right, and the idea is that they leave a smiley face, either in a drawing or a sticker or something by where these people would have entered the river.
Mm-hmm.
And right. So that's just just for some background on it for people listening, and that the smiley face killers will get their own episode onto themselves sometime. But you guys went out hunting for them, one night where you're just patrolling along the river. And how did that go?
Yeah, well, that happened because one college kid had gone missing, and so Razorhawk had the idea that instead of doing like a street patrol, we would do sort of a patrol in the area where he disappeared, hoping that we could either A, find some evidence, or maybe even find the kid who was missing because his body was still missing at that point, or B, find any sort of evidence that would be like a smiley face, something like that. So we spent a long night walking around in the woods, and we didn't find anything noteworthy. But I mean, he put the effort in,
right?
Trying to look, yeah.
And did you guys have what did you guys talk about? Like, what would be a conversation on the investigation, and what kind of equipment? Like, did anybody have any superhero-ish? Was there any utility belts used?
Yeah, a lot of these guys have kind of a utility belt, but it's pretty commonplace stuff. Some of them will carry pepper spray. They usually have flashlights. Nothing too extravagant for most of them. Some of them have some kind of crazy inventions that they've come up with. But, yeah, pretty normal stuff, flashlights, stuff like that.
So, you didn't just stay to the Midwest, though, when you were working on the book, right? Like,
Yeah.
You went all over the country to different places besides just the upper Midwest. And where do you think you found the strongest kind of real life superhero movement? Like what cities do you think were like, wow, these guys have it going on?
Yeah, that was fun. I got to travel around a little bit I worked on the book I started in 2009 and I wrapped it up in 2012. So,
that's a good chunk of your life, man. So it's a real project.
Yeah, I really immersed myself in it a lot. And, whenever I could get some time off and money together, because at the time I didn't have a publisher for the book even. I was just kind of, hoping it would all pay off at some point. So I was just using my own money, and I went and spent like a weekend in Brooklyn, and I went to a real-life superhero conference in New Bedford, Massachusetts. I went to Seattle and Vancouver, Portland, San Diego. So I got to meet a wide range of different people involved in the movement and a lot of different approaches. And everyone was different, and there's different interesting things about everyone I met. But, definitely some really memorable stuff would be the New York Initiative in Brooklyn. They're kind of a grittier, darker type of crime prevention group. And they do patrols on longboards, and they're a very interesting group. Seattle, Phoenix Jones was pretty crazy. And I really enjoyed my trip to Vancouver because the guy up there's one guy in Vancouver, and his name is Thanatos, and he is a Vietnam vet in his 60s, and his focus is more on helping homeless people out there. And, I was really kind of impressed with him. He's a very kind-hearted guy.
And what kind of outfit does Thanatos wear? I mean, because you just Thanatos in the comics, obviously. I mean, that's what kind of I mean, that's got to be a dark outfit, a heavy outfit. Like, what's he got?
Yeah, and this was kind of it ended up being a humbling moment for me because his costume is really pretty creepy. It's a green skull mask. His costume is a lot like Rorschach from Watchmen.
Okay.
He's got like a fedora and a trench coat, and then he wears this green skull mask, and he has a tie with skull and crossbones on it. And I was like, this guy, he looks pretty creepy, and I don't know about this idea he has of like going and talking to homeless people.
Right, you're gonna freak him out.
Yeah, right. But I was kind of surprised and a little bit humbled to see that when I went out with him, like he was kind of a street legend in Vancouver. All the homeless people knew who he was, and they knew his name and knew that he was there handing out stuff. So, and they all liked seeing him.
Okay. So
it was weird, and it was kind of cool, He's like a street legend up there.
And like, does he, what does he do with, homeless? Like does he just, see how they're doing, making sure nobody's like ODing or that somebody hasn't disappeared kind of thing?
Yeah, he does all that. He uses his own money and he buys like things of big packages of bottles of water, and he gets like tarps and blankets and food, and he drives around and hands those out to people and just stops and talks with them, sees how they're doing. If he can help them in some other way, he does. And he's just kind of a friendly yet spooky looking figure.
No, that's really awesome. It's funny when you said like, well, his outfit's kind of like Rorschach. For some reason, the first thing I heard was Horseshack. So it's like his outfit's kind of like Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter, and I just pictured him like, oh, I don't know if that's creepy, weird, yes.
Yeah.
But no, that was just the first thing I thought. So I just want to recommend anybody who's interested in this kind of stuff, definitely check out Heroes in the Night inside the real life superhero movement, because it really does go into, like, you have these, you go on missions with these guys, you go on patrols with these guys, and it's not just a book that's, making fun of people. It's a book that really goes into what it takes for people like Thanatos or Phoenix Jones or Razorhawk or the Watchmen to get out there in the world, to be that kind, to be brave. And I think it's a nice, honest look at that. So we were talking a little bit about this in the pre-interview, but you started the book in 2009. It published in 2013. I mean, there's blogs and there's articles that come up about this sometime. But superheroes are more in the culture now than they've ever been at any other time. And this is the only book that's really, I think, tackled the real life superhero movement in this kind of way. So they must have read it.
Yeah.
Did everybody involved? I mean, they must have read it. Now, what was the reaction to the book when they saw it? Like when they were like, "Hey," did some people feel like, "Hey, you made me look like a jerk," or were they like, "I think you really had an honest, balanced look at people like me"?
Overall, I would say that the reaction was pretty positive. I think that people appreciated that I was trying to do an honest portrayal. So, I mean, there's some kind of ugly moments with some of the ideas that some real-life superheroes have. But at the same time, my goal was never to ridicule them or trying to write a piece that was just going to take them apart, I like what a lot of them do. I don't think it's a flawless movement. I think it's probably like any group of people. There's some people that have good intentions and are doing a cool thing, and then there's other people who are in it for the wrong reasons, probably. So reaction overall has been really positive. There's a couple people who have made comments that they don't like the way that they were portrayed, but those have been very few.
If you look at origin stories for superheroes, it's always got something with that. Batman. I mean, spoiler alert: Batman's parents were killed, and Spider-Man lost his uncle, and Superman is an orphan that was adopted into a Kansan family. Superheroes in the comic books have there's a common theme a lot of times running through their origins. Do you feel that there was a common theme in the real life superhero movement running through the origins or the intentions of these guys?
Yeah, I think overall there's various reasons why people would get into it. I think some, honestly, were just bored and it seemed like a cool idea. But I think what I found for a lot of people is they're just kind of sick of watching the news and seeing all the bad things happening and being kind of powerless. So this is kind of a empowering way to try to make the world a better place. And for a lot of them, I think it's a little bit about self-improvement. Like they want to be a better person, and this is something that speaks to them as to how to do that. So I haven't encountered dramatic origin stories, like Batman or Spider-Man.
Okay.
But it's a lot of people, I think, that are just kind of tired of being apathetic and want to have a hobby that helps other people out.
For somebody who might be interested in getting into the real life superhero movement, like we said, comic books and superheroes are bigger than they've ever been. The biggest movies every year have been superheroes for the past 3-4 years. What would you recommend, or what advice would you give to somebody that says like, hey, I love this stuff and I want to make myself better, or I want to help my community? What would you recommend to them?
I would recommend seeing if there are active real life superheroes in your area, or maybe like trying to find a couple of friends so you can have a small team. And don't shoot for trying to do something in the comic books. Just try to shoot for something that makes your community a better place. I mean, I really love seeing groups of superheroes that use their flashy personas to kind of draw attention to them doing a charity event or something like that, or groups that try to work with their neighborhoods and communities. I think those are the success stories. I think the failures are guys who think they're going to be Batman and are like cruising around the streets by themselves.
Have there been any particular cases or crimes that have been, solved that are directly attributable to any of the real life superheroes? Is there anything, that strikes you that you're like, no, this makes it all worth it? Anything you know of?
Yeah, nothing major, but I know that some real life superheroes have reported crimes and police have made arrests based on those. So I think there's some minor success stories here and there.
And this is obviously a popular topic. Now, you're going to be doing a panel at the Madison Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And so which superheroes did you bring with you to do on the panel? Like, what are people expecting?
I'm going to be meeting up there with Electron and Adsum. And they are two real-life superheroes from the La Crosse area. And also, the Remnant and Smash Cat are a couple, and they are new real-life superheroes, and they are from the Madison area here. So I'll have the four of them, and...
Wait, there's real-life superheroes in La Crosse?
Yeah. Electron is from Madison, but he moved up to La Crosse, I think a year or two ago.
Wow.
I've met him quite a few times and wrote about him briefly in my book. The other three are all pretty new to this, so that's kind of.
Have you seen their outfits yet or anything? Like, did you?
Oh yeah. Remnant wears kind of a gas mask and a trench coat.
That's terrifying.
And, yeah. Smash Cat has kind of this kind of a goth punk rock look, and Electron's got this kind of. Well, he's actually changed a couple times, but he usually has like a yellow and white type of either body armor, or sometimes he wears like a suit and tie, depending on his mood. So yeah, they're way into it, and I think what I'm going to focus on today is just talking to them about what inspired them to get involved and what they hope to do with it.
Yeah, and that's really exciting. La Crosse is another place that the Smiley Face Murder Club. That's where people have also gone into the river. So I hope that Electron ends up catching one of those guys sometime, or maybe saving somebody who's going to fall in.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And you've done this at different, like you did one of these panels in Chicago, right? Two at the Chicago, like Wizard World?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I did Wizard World Chicago and Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo, C2E2. And I did the Minneapolis Wizard World, actually, too.
And when you brought out to those, like Chicago, I mean, we know Minneapolis, but Chicago has some superheroes as well, real life?
Yeah, they have a small team there called Patch. There's maybe, 4 or 5 guys.
Okay. Any particularly good outfits or anything like that you remember from Patch?
Yeah, I mean, they are all like pretty typical real life superhero, spandex, face masks. Some have that look that Thanatos has that I mentioned is pretty popular. Trench coat and a fedora, classic, pulp detective.
Sure. It's like the Shadow or something.
Yeah. Crimson Catalyst was a member of that team. I don't think that she might not still be active, but she had a great costume. It was very colorful, very flame colored, She had this, a lot of red hair and red goggles. It's pretty cool.
Sweet. And I know in your book, I'm just talking about different superhero teams in different cities. And your book, you talk about the different cities in the United States. But also, the real-life superhero movement isn't something that's just limited to the United States. I mean, there's teams all over the world, right?
Yeah, I love hearing about those. It's always very interesting. And one of the great things about working on that book is I get messages from random people, new people who are involved in this. So, like last year, there's a new team in Germany, and their team leader sent me an email and told me about his team. But yeah, it's mostly in the United States, but they pop up here and there. Like I just mentioned, there's a new team in Germany. There's some British real life superheroes. There's maybe 3 or 4 that I know of in Australia. So
now that you're known as like the bard and the storyteller of the real life superhero movement, are you getting, like you said, that the leader of the team in Germany approached you? Do you get emails from real life superheroes looking for attention, or people who are interested in the movement, like checking in with you first?
Oh yeah, all the time. I'll get a message, hey, I'm from Tennessee. Do you know of any real life superheroes here? Or, media will still contact me sometimes. Or, yeah, I get emails probably every week from various people trying to find out some sort of information. And if I can give it to them, I do. But, yeah, and I used to run a blog, heroesinthenight.blogspot.com, which still has tons of old stuff on it. I don't really have time to do that anymore, but I still maintain a Heroes in the Night Facebook page.
Okay.
Where I repost any sort of news that I see that has to do with real-life superheroes or anything like kind of close to the concept,
Yeah.
I'll just share links or share a couple sentences of news that I hear, stuff like that. So.
Well, and I'm looking at Heroes in the Night blogspot, and I've been reading it, researching before I interviewed you. And besides the stuff from Phoenix Jones, which you have some great picks there, I really enjoy the post about what actors would play these superheroes in the story of their lives.
Uh-huh.
And so it starts out with you, with Bruce Campbell playing you.
Oh, yeah. And that was fun.
And so Bruce Campbell, he's going to be at the Comic-Con in Madison this weekend, and he's always fun. I've been berated by him several times, and he's great at those things. For Watchmen from Milwaukee, you had Matt Damon originally, crossed it out, and picked Val Kilmer. Any reason you dropped the hot actor for the guy who hasn't had a hit since 2000?
Oh, well, I just thought, I think of him as being one of the, he got to play Batman in a movie.
Yes.
So, I don't know, I didn't put much thought into it. I just kind of made a list of people I wanted to think of actors for, and then, like, the first thing that popped in my head, I was like, go with it.
Right.
And for some reason, I was like, Val Kilmer, he'd be a good Watchman.
That's great. And, you pick up, like, Razorhawk from Minneapolis, you pick The Rock, Geist from Rochester, Nicolas Cage, who played the memorable real-life superhero Big Daddy in Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
I like the deep cut for Thanatos, and you go into Keith Carradine.
Yeah. That would be great, actually.
For older, for more seasoned actors, you take Keith Carradine. For those of you who might not be completely familiar with them, he was on Dexter. He played the FBI guy Frank on Dexter, and he was also Wild Bill on Deadwood.
Right.
If I remember correctly. Yeah, so Keith Carradine. So that's a good one. So now I picture Thanatos. I mean, you give him, he's got that dark Rorschach look, and I pictured him as like a gaunt, gray figure is what Keith Carradine brings out in the imagery from that.
Yeah, you're perfect.
And Phoenix Jones, you have him. We'll put a picture of him in the blog our blog post and show notes, and we'll link to this in the show notes too. Phoenix Jones, you have it himself.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anyone else that could do the role justice. Really.
And even the name is great too, Phoenix Jones. Like that's an awesome superhero. Like he doesn't need anything special for that. So no, that's great, and we'll definitely put a link to the Heroes in the Night blogspot site. So your superhero stuff and the real life superhero movement, you're still working with that a bit by doing these panels and everything, but your interests also go to other places in the paranormal.
Yeah.
And I just thought we could wrap up and talk a little bit about some of your other works and other interests in the paranormal, and we'd love to get you on again when we get close to the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, which is on June 6th.
Yes.
And so where's that going to take place? In Milwaukee, but where in Milwaukee is it going to take place?
Yeah, it's a one-day event. It's going to take place June 6th from noon until about 7 o'clock. And there'll be after-party type stuff, too. But the main event there is at the Irish Cultural and Heritage Center, which is downtown. It's very close to the Marquette campus, Wisconsin and 20th or 21st, I think. And the Irish Center there, it's housed in a beautiful old church. And we're going to be having speakers in the main room there, and they also have a big room with a pub in it in the basement.
Oh.
And we'll be having some more speakers down there, and we also have a large back room where we'll be having like a vending hall. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's free. It's open to the public. And there'll be about 12 to 14 speakers and panels going on throughout the day.
And it's going to be very unique. We're going to be there. My sister Allison Jorlin and Milwaukee Ghosts are going to be there. Obviously, she's all over it like white on rice. And
she's going to be giving a talk at the event too.
So we'll definitely get more in depth on that when we get closer to the date. But what other kind of paranormal themed works or articles have you been working on and that are kind of developing now?
Well, the reason I was inspired to do this conference is when I was finishing up Heroes in the Night, my publisher said, "We like it. What do you want to do next?" Which is a good thing to hear.
Right.
And I kicked around a couple ideas, and one that we all liked was me doing kind of the same thing, except real-life superheroes. I would be traveling around and hanging out with paranormal investigators, different types of paranormal investigators. And that's an interest I've had, since I was a kid. So I spent a little over a year hanging out with ghost hunters and haunted houses and looking for Bigfoot and going to UFO conventions and all that fun stuff. And I put that together in a book that's titled Monster Hunters, On the Trail with Ghost Hunters, Bigfooters, UFOlogists, and Other Paranormal Investigators.
Ah.
And it's a book that's a little bit more about like the people and the type of people that get involved with that sort of thing, and my adventures hanging out with them.
Well, we just did an episode on El Chupacabra. Did you hunt that little guy down at all?
Yeah, actually, there is a chapter where I talk about chupacabras, and in that chapter, I kind of focus on a skeptic, actually, who investigated that case. And so that chapter talks about chupacabras, but it's a little bit more about skepticism than anything else.
Sure. Well, that at the end of our episode on El Chupacabra, that's kind of where we ended up too, more on the skeptical side than the believer side, thinking that it probably was mangy coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
But it sure is an interesting history, especially because it's a creature of the modern age. It's the first cryptid of the internet age.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. So we'll definitely have to talk about monsters sometime and link to that. You can get all these books on Amazon?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. That's where I picked up my copy of Heroes in the Night Inside the Real Life Superhero Movement. And I recommend everybody picks that one up, especially if you're from the Midwest. You're going to find a lot of cool stuff about different groups in the Midwest, and it's fun to see. And in the different cities you visit, too, like Seattle, Vancouver, and Brooklyn, and San Diego, and everything. I think it really gives an interesting, a fair and balanced picture of what these guys are doing. So just recommend everybody pick that up. And so, T, for more on you and more on the conference, where should people go?
Sure. We do have a website for the conference. It's MilwaukeeParacon.com. And there you can find the full listing of the speakers and information on the vendors and everything else. And my personal site is just my name, Krulos.com. And I kind of just update on various stuff that I'm working on that site.
So if you can't spell it out, then we'll put it right in the show notes, and you guys can click on there, and you can check out his site and his books and all the cool stuff he's doing. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us today, T. We really had a good time, and good luck with everything, and we'd love to talk to you again soon about some of the other great topics that you're pursuing and the exciting things that you're writing about.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, T, I hope you have a great day. Break a leg at the Comic-Con, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Today's featured song, inspired by this episode, is a salute to the heroes out there working hard for us, and hopefully this one will get you up and running and maybe even get you to go and save the day yourself. Here's the song, Real Life Superheroes. Victor living right next door. We have a hero, local vigilante, real life superhero, just might save the day. We have a hero, doing what is right, real life superhero.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.